Welcome into Kitchen Talk Pickleball Edition. I'm your host, Caitlin Miller, and this week joining us is Doug Snelson. Doug, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
So Doug and his wife own a publishing company, most recently got into Pickleball Poetry that's gotten national and international recognition. So Doug, how did you kind of get into the poetry side of pickleball?
Well, actually, I didn't know there was a poetry side of pickleball, but I have published 5 books, and the other 3 relate to children's books. And I was interested in coming up with a new book. And I had just played pickleball that morning, and I was on the beach in Long Beach Island, New Jersey. And I was doing something called morning pages, which is you write 3 pages, stream of consciousness. And I thought, and maybe an idea would come from that. And so I thought, well, what did I do this morning? I played pickleball. I wonder what that would look like in a poem or in a rhyming format, really. It was more of a rhyming format. I never really looked at it as a poem. And so I wrote Pickled, and I started going through that. What would it be like to have that kind of an experience? Well, that evolved into 31 more poems or 31 more messages, if you will, because when I started writing at age 16, I just had this desire to rhyme. It was just so much fun for me. So
Yeah.
2 things were combined: my love of pickleball and my love of writing. That's how it all started.
That's amazing. And when were you able to publish your first pickleball poem?
Well, I published them all together,
Okay.
and where I play in Long Beach Island, 2 of the people that I know there, one a nationally certified referee, I think people that you know,
Andy.
Andy Jones and Carl Lumbell. I mentioned this to them that I was considering putting this together, and they knew me from my children's books, and they loved the idea. And I told them, well, it's going to be an adult book. It's going to be for people who enjoy pickleball. And they were very encouraging. And so I asked them to be consultants. They agreed to, and they had some very good insight. So even though I have been playing for a good 8, 9 years, I wanted to make sure that my own sensibilities about what I was saying and what I was communicating in the book, in fact, would relate to others.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I play, do you play on Nelson Ave in
Absolutely.
LBI? Yes.
I actually have seen you play on Nelson Avenue
Oh,
at the
that's so
time.
funny.
Oh yeah, yes, you're the famous Caitlin Miller who plays at Long Beach every once in a while. There's Caitlin Miller. So you didn't know that, did you? But yeah, no, I do there. I do play there, and of course, Carl and Andy kind of run the show there, manage
Yes.
that, and they do a really wonderful job doing so.
It's a shout out to the LBI pickleball community because it is so special. Like, I live in Nashville now.
Yeah.
LBI, will always be a home to me. I spent every summer there, throughout college and everything. So it's just, they're so welcoming. There's a lot of great players. It really is such a special community.
No question about it. And a lot of excellent players too.
Yes. Yes.
Actually, a lot of nice people who
Yes.
are competitive and on all kinds of different levels, people who want to learn the game and just have fun.
I know, I love it. So, so talk to me a little bit. You mentioned the pickled poem. What are other, I guess topics that have happened on the court that
Well,
you started writing about? Yeah, share
can you
us
see
some
that?
parts of
All right.
your book. Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, so I'll give you some of the they're short poems, and I say to people, don't look at this as a book of poetry. Look at this as a fun book on messages about pickleball that you can relate to, that you can identify with, and maybe share with other people as well. Maybe even learn something. And I've had a few professionals, I'll say professionals who are certified trainers, say to me, you really hit it on the nose here on a few of those. So I've got pickled, third shot drop, hydration, Painfully Patient. These are titles. It Just Makes Me Happy, New Paddle, and it just goes on and on and on. We play at 8, the soft game. A very popular one, which if you want, I'll read it,
I was
is
going to ask, yeah, definitely. I was going to ask you
it's,
to read your favorite one.
well, it's not, they're all favorites. They're all favorites.
Okay.
But if someone doesn't know much about pickleball, and unfortunately, we've all had this experience at some point, I think, in our pickleball journey. We might have a little pain in the knee sometimes, a
Yes.
little bit, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
No, I
Anyway,
have.
so this was called My Knee Hurts, and you'll notice there's an illustration there. The illustrations, you can see there was a little bit.
Yes.
I had the illustrations worked with a gentleman by the name of Jim Ditmars, who is a former contributing editor, illustrator to the New York Times Magazine, and he's also a very good pickleball player. So he kind of got it. And so they're very short. Here's My Knee Hurts. And what I say to people is, you cannot pick up this book without smiling. And for as long as you have this book, you will always smile. And if at any time you pick up this book and do not smile, you call me up, I will send you your money back. And that's all it is to. So
I
this is
love that.
my knee hurts. My knee hurts. My shoulder aches. My ankle twists. Goodness sakes. Fingers swell. Back with spasm. My mood needs enthusiasm. Elbow sprains, now bursitis, suffering, sore arthritis. My palms sweat, my cap so damp. My arch hurts, my calf with cramp. I am okay. I will take all. Just give me my pickleball.
I love the ending.
So that it's that kind of sensibility. Always a lot of fun. Always a positive approach to the game, to sport, to the energy of what the whole community is all about. So I hit a number of activities. The My wife, who now plays pickleball and had not played
Amazing.
pickleball before,
Okay.
Diane, my publishing partner and much better half, I would, when I started playing, I would put the TV on, put YouTube on, and I would watch everybody play pickleball. And she'd hear this clicking sound, which was, of course, the ball bouncing. And
Sure, yes.
I remembered that. So I wrote one poem about people who know nothing about the pickleball at all. So this is called She Hears the TV Clicking. She hears the TV clicking, a quick, consistent sound. It's like a wristwatch ticking. To her, it might confound. Who is shouting those numbers? Why shout them out in threes? My reading it encumbers. I need this noise to cease. So that's just now, of course, she laughs at that because now, and of course,
Now she's
shout them out.
addicted.
Now she's addicted. She plays on a team, and right now, as we speak, she said, "Please say hi to Caitlin for me," and
Oh,
I'm out there out on the court. So, but
well, yeah. I was gonna say I'm jealous. And also speaking of the three, numbers, I was like, when I first started, I was so confused by the scoring, and I've
yeah,
played so many points or so many sports my entire life, and
yes.
I could not get the scoring right for so long for the life of me. I was like, oh my goodness.
Well, I could say, and I understand that. In fact, not only that, but then remembering who served first and who served
I
second.
know.
You
There
know,
are so many rules to this sport. I will
yeah,
say, like, I noticed that over Thanksgiving, when I'm trying to teach some of my friends or family members that want to play, and like, you don't realize how many rules there are until you're trying to explain them all to someone else. And I'm
yes,
like, oh my goodness.
yes, yes. And my view was I've had an opportunity to be asked to coach a couple of the earlier skill teams. Is my point to them is have fun,
Yeah.
be safe, do a little stretching. Don't get hung up on what other people are doing. And I use the D word being drill.
Yeah.
which that's the quickest way to your improvement for sure.
Definitely. And I mean, now you just said you're a 4-8 player. Amazing. So tell me, like, when did you get into pickleball and when
Yeah.
did this whole journey start?
Oh, for me, the short strokes on it. I was a tennis player in high school, played a little squash, a little racquetball over the years. Stopped all that, and I was in a community. My wife and I were living in a community, and I was playing a lot of table tennis. And one of the guys who lived down the street said, "Hey, Doug, come on, we're going to play pickleball." I said, "What are you talking about?" "Oh, we just relined the tennis courts. Come on, we need you." So they had wooden paddles, uh, you know, um, the old Franklin balls, and we started hitting back and forth. And immediately I was addicted. Now, having said that, that's how I got into it. I was, fortunately for me, I was quicker than some of my peers. So everything I did was a bang. Fast,
Yep.
hard, quick, hard, hard, until I was invited to another group and I started doing how I started hitting like I always hit. And all of a sudden they just tapped it over they just reset and they blocked. And I thought, oh, I got to change things. And that really started my journey. Then, Caitlin, people like Andy Jones and Carl Lumbell and others took me under their wing. They saw how I was playing and would make suggestions for me and encouraged me, just absolutely encouraged me. I never forgot it. And that's how I approach the game myself today. And maybe, I know you'll agree, people who play pickleball are the most encouraging, nice people. The vast, vast majority. There, you get a
Yes.
few who, have their ways.
There's
But that's
always
the way it
them,
is. There's always that. That's for sure.
That's so when did you start this journey? How long ago was it?
I want to say, about 8 years ago.
Okay,
Started about
okay.
eight
So you
years
were
ago.
in the sport ahead of most people.
Well, just as it was coming on board and I was acknowledging it, I think LBI had just had their second tournament. And the first
Okay.
tournament, in fact, the first tournament, I was in a 3-5 tournament and came in second place
Awesome.
with my partner. Oh, that was like it was so encouraging. But someone like Andy Jones, it was actually Andy that came up to me and said, "Doug, you need to go up to the next level." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Don't go into a 3-5 tournament. No, go into a 4-0 tournament. And when you win that, try to get into a 4-5 tournament. Just keep on moving
Right,
upward and
right.
and forward." And it was just wonderful advice, And I would hear that from other people as well, because the vast majority of us who are athletic, generally speaking, have agility. We may even be helping other people play pickleball. We don't have others who are observing us encourage us unless we're on a team or a professional team where you absolutely have a coach and they're picking out the little mistakes. I mean, I always say, oftentimes I have to relearn, re-drill, reignite myself to remember how to certain techniques in terms of drives and third shot drops and blocks and strategy on the court and just taking care of myself.
I know that's the most interesting thing I always say about pickleball. Like every sport in my entire life, I've always had a coach. And this is the first sport I have maybe taken like one lesson from James Ignatowicz. I think that was
Oh,
literally the only time I've ever taken a lesson. And so it's just interesting. And of course, we're in our professional careers. We're not, trying to pursue a sport. Besides, I love traveling around for tournaments, but it's just funny, like, you learn from your friends, you learn from drilling, you learn from playing with people better than you. It'll be interesting though to see, because now there's pickleball camps and all these other things
yes.
that, like, the next generation of people coming up, and as it becomes more of a collegiate sport and high school and all the club sports, it'll be interesting. People will actually have coaches, which we've never really had.
No, I completely agree with that. And you mentioned James Ignatowicz. I'm also a big fan. I'm a big fan of a lot of the pros who have taken the time
Yeah.
to put themselves on the web and on YouTube. As much as the web is or the internet is criticized for probably poor information in certain areas of our life. When it comes to pickleball, there is just so much good information. And even if some of the information doesn't agree with the other information, the essence of it is excellent. So I agree with you. I kind of look, in fact, people like James Ignatowicz have made me a better player. I've never taken a personal lesson with him, but when I coach a team, um, something on a, let's say, as simple as a third shot drop, even though I believe I know how to communicate that, I'll look through three or four different videos from three or four different pros that I admire. Simone,
Yep.
Catherine Parenteau, Callie, all those, Ben Johns, and then incorporate that and then try to distill it into something very simple and given an image that the early skilled players can relate to. And that seems to work out very well.
No, it's amazing to see just how much online coaching and just using Instagram and, like you said, YouTube, even things I learn. Of course, Tanner, he's from New
Oh, yeah.
Jersey. He's
Yes,
great
yes.
too. But just like the strategy, I feel like once you get to a certain level, sure, you can drill your weaknesses, which is great. But then also learning the strategy, like they'll replay points from a PPA tournament and
Mm.
explain exactly what they're thinking and what they're doing. And it's so helpful. It's amazing.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I just, of cour- I mean, I believe you were like me. I'm sort of a good friend of mine said, so you're part of the cult, are you?
Yeah.
And I say, yes, I am part of the cult, and in the most positive way. That one could be part of that. And try to encourage that, which is why I wrote the book. And in fact, even in writing the book, I used some inspiration from other writers, believe it or not, to
Amazing.
put this book together. If I may, just share some of that.
Yeah.
Well, because it's in rhyming format, and it's the official title is Pickleball Poetry, Fun and Whimsical Verses to Dink About. Uh, I'm trying to not take myself too seriously, not try to take the sport too seriously, although I'm very serious on the court. I will add, and it's written in kind of an iambic pentameter. It was sort of the classic rhyming patterns, and a lot of people think that this is something that's new within the last, say, 20, 30 years, where people they think of Dr. Seuss or a writer like that, where actually it goes back to Geoffrey Chaucer and the Canterbury Tales, who
Wow.
actually who wrote in a rhyming format. And when I kind of compare the two, I relate the two because he wrote about just people, normal people that were doing normal things. Shakespeare, same thing. He's most famous for his 154 sonnets. Now, I don't want to get into another area here, but the inspiration board, if you will, the writing inspiration board for this particular book came from a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay called Renaissance, and the substance of that poem had nothing to do with the substance of pickleball poetry. Where it does have a connection is all of her couplets started and ended with a different word. And so it was something that I wanted to honor all the way through the book, where I would write, the iambic pentameter. So when someone reads these poems, they should come away from it saying, I could have written that. It should be as simple as possible. In fact, it's in explaining a third shot drop to someone and then doing it for them or showing it, and they go, okay, oh yeah, I can do that. Look how simple that is. Then they try it and they find they got to work at it. So
Yes.
I worked at it a lot. And as I said, Andy and Carl were really great about making some suggestions.
Well, that's amazing. Obviously, you got inspiration from so many great authors, and it's been successful. You've gotten a lot of national, international recognition. I mean, share some of that in the awards that you've won.
Well, thank you. I had gotten in touch with the pickler.net and mentioned that I had this book, and it turned out that one of the journalists or one of the writers for the pickler.net was a pickleball player, and so he was very curious about how I approached the book, and wrote some very favorable things, which he then published. They published in the pickler.net, which I was very, very pleased with. I got a lot of great feedback from that. You mentioned I was submitted to Writer's Digest, and Writer's Digest wrote, Writer's Digest is sort of the one of the go-to publications for any writer of any genre. And they wrote a very nice review as part of a contest that I had entered, and I was very pleased about that. The book also received an award from the received the Pinnacle Achievement Award from the North American Book Entrepreneurs, and that's nice.
Yeah.
For sports poetry, gives it a little credibility. I talk about the awards in the sense that someone that has a critical has critical thinking or critical mind for this kind of writing has said, you did a good thing. So I'll take that every single time.
I was going to say, just like, having your book out there and people reading, and obviously it getting recognition, and it's something that you're so passionate about and has really helped you. What is it like to, like, know that people are reading this and smiling and it is making them happy?
Oh, it is just the most it's the most wonderful experience that I could have when someone comes up to me and says, Doug, I read your book, and they'll pick out a poem that I wrote, but out of nowhere they'll say, I really identify with this particular poem or that particular poem. At the front of the book, I quote Jack Kerouac, who was a Pulitzer Prize winning author, best known for On the Road from the 50s and the 60s. And what he said was, one day, let me read it. I'll read it word for word. It's very short. One day I will find the right words and they will be simple. So I put that in the front of the book because these words are simple. I almost put underneath it a quote from me, but I didn't want to diminish anything that he said. I was going to say, one day I will find the right shots and they will be simple, because writing, my best writing is the simplest writing.
Yeah.
My best pickleball is when I am patient and consistent and waiting for those unforced errors to occur. I say this, and yet
I
I am
know it's
still
hard to stick
guilty
with it.
of seeing that ball pop up and, just maybe I'll hit it, and then boom, it goes into the net.
But it's interesting to see the parallels between your game and how you're, writing the poetry. I think that's amazing.
Well, as I say, it combines two things that I just love to do. I love to play pickleball. I love to talk about it. I love to teach it, and the more I teach it, the better I become as a player.
Yeah.
And you've used the word journey. There is you learn a lot about yourself when you're playing pickleball. You learn how to be patient. You learn how to deal with people that you're playing with that you wish maybe were a little bit better, or perhaps have a personality that isn't the best on the court for you, the chemistry. And you learn
Right.
about chemistry and partnerships and how that goes. So it's just I would almost say, and I'm going to say it, it's almost like a spiritual journey with pickleball at times. And it certainly is that way with my writing as well. I've learned to be patient about some of the words that I put together. So I will go back to something that I've written. I won't just write something and then say, oh, there, it's done. You have to write, rewrite, and rewrite, and then let it wash over you. I tell people when I'm coaching them, forget about everything that I said to you in the last hour, but let it all wash over you so that it maybe a technique or a phrase or a thought that I gave you becomes part of your playing, and then integrate that into your game. And little by little, it'll become part of your pickleball DNA.
I think it's so interesting how you call it a spiritual journey. I just think like mentally, I always say I think pickleball is like a harder sport mentally than it is physically, because I feel like with this sport, one day you could be hitting all your drives, your third shot drops, the next day literally popping them too high, hitting them in the net, and it gets so frustrating. And not to mention, like, I've been in tournaments where I'm up 9-2 and then end up
Oh,
losing
yeah.
11-9. And I just feel like this sport has such like a momentum shift faster than any other sport I've really played. Like, you really can have such a lead, and then next thing you know, you're losing the match. And I feel like this game, and for me too, as someone that's been an athlete my whole life, it really
Yeah.
has tested me mentally. I feel like I've become more patient, like you said, learn how to cope and work with different personalities, and then that helps you in the professional space or with your personal life and things like that. So it's really interesting how you've had that similar experience.
Oh, absolutely no question about it. I remember being in a tournament, a mixed doubles tournament, which my partner and I won. Thank goodness she was on and
Okay.
I was off, and I got the yips on my serve. And here you have all this space to get that little ball into in the serve, and I'm hitting it out, and it got into my head. And I think, geez, I'm teaching. I tell people, don't let it get into your head. I read an article about the three aspects of pickleball that never change. So I try to share them based on some of the things that you just said. And the first is that you're always going to have a need to review and relearn and drill your technique. That's kind of a given. The second, as people get more advanced, is to improve and review their strategy on the court, where they're moving with their partner, with and without the ball. And I say, but the third, and I've actually added a fourth now when I talk to my to the teams that I coach. But the third is as important as the first two, which is not a physical aspect, it's the mental aspect. The mental aspect of pickleball is as important as the strategy and the
Yeah.
technique. The fourth that I've recently added is that some of the early skilled players that I've coached have had injuries. And so the fourth that is as important as the other three is taking care of yourself, that physical stretching if you can. And I'm not a big
Yeah.
stretcher. My wife will stretch for half an hour. She does
Which
anytime
is
before
great.
she plays. Oh yeah, I don't. I do a little calf thing and
I know.
move my legs a little bit. And I want to get on the court and I want to start playing. So.
Amazing. Well, before I let you go, Doug, tell me if someone wants to purchase your book, where can they find it?
Well, I am, and the way I'd like to, I'm going to tell you where I'd like to end with one poem, if I may. After that, may I?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Oh, thank you. So I'm on Amazon, easy to get to, but you can go to any bookstore in the country and you can order it through the bookstore. It may
Okay.
not be in the bookstore, but you could order it through the bookstore. The other is you can you go to my website, DougSnelson.com. Google will ask you, did you mean DougNelson.com? And you were to say, no, Doug Snelson with an S.com. And the only reason that I say go to the website is I'll sign the book for you. And I have a lot of teams across the country. People will get in touch with me and they say, I need 8 copies, I need 10 copies. Here are the names of the people. Would you sign them? So it makes it a lot more fun and a lot more personable for me. So 3 ways: Amazon, bookstores, and at my website, DougSnelson.com. So
Awesome.
if I may read this poem,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
this is the last poem in the book, and it's called "End Paddle Click." End Paddle Click. And I thought this would be an appropriate way to end our session together.
Yes.
End Paddle Click. Here it goes. A word about the truth we all call sportsmanship. No need to be uncouth. Be slow to let your inside slip. Treat with respect. They did their best. Good shot, good try, play fair. What troubles you should lie to rest. A good sport means you care. It's just a game. You win, you lose. Play hard, play kind. Be in the thick. Play for the love. Avoid the blues. End with a smile. And paddle click.
I love that. End paddle click. What a perfect way to end the podcast recording. Well, Doug, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely go check out his book and stay tuned to see who will join us in the kitchen next time.